pretty much what's happening, you know.
You're like, I think you're bigger.
I mean, Doge
him, and that's an issue. And I think he's got it. His numbers in the polls are very bad. I would say very, very bad. And they may improve, but I don't quite know how they will. And they're trying really hard. The Trump people are trying, but it's not working particularly well. They think because he keeps doing these dick moves, essentially. I mean, for example, his appearance at CPAC, Elon wore his black MAGA hat, sunglasses, and then at one point wielded a chainsaw on stage that was given to him by Argentina's President Milei. His onstage interview was full of crazy stuff. Let's just listen to a clip.
I have become meme. Yeah, pretty much. I'm just living the meme. It's like there's living the dream and there's living the meme, and it's pretty much what's happening, you know.
You're like, I think you're bigger.
I mean, Doge started out as a meme. Think about it. And now it's real. Isn't that crazy?
It is crazy.
It's cool.
No, he's crazy. That was, and they were all, he was laughing at his own jokes, and they're like, and that guy who interviewed him was such a sucker. It was like, it was so awkward. Scott, as you said on Threads, this is like when your ketamine dealer finally gets back from Cabo.
Thank God he's back.
I know. So what did you, this is the beginning part. That was just, look, everyone talks about him being allegedly on drugs. That was some performance. He was on something.
I think it's a far right echo chamber of people who think it mistake leadership for coarseness and cruelty and just general weirdness.
It brings down, I think, him not having good polling. He's in the political spectrum thing now. It matters. Polling matters to these people. And if you're getting pushback, if you're a congressperson in like,
Well, that's different.
Mid-
Colleagues.
yeah,
I think we should all, anyone with a platform has a responsibility. Let me back up. What to do? A common tactic across GRU propaganda machine is blitzkrieg of information, where so many things are coming at you, you don't know how to parse them, you feel helpless, you don't know where to start. However, you need to calm down, and there's a few basic defense mechanisms or a few means of counterpunching. One, recognize you don't need to respond to every outrageous thing. You don't need to be emotional. Two, when you do respond with experts and data. Try not to be overly emotional. And also, and this is the hard part, decide which punches you're going to pick. And that is pick one or two or maybe three issues and focus on those and highlight them. So for example, I'm not focusing on this bullshit around DEI or Doge or transgender. Some people I think are passionate about it should focus on it. I believe the two most important things are the following. We have decided to surrender to Putin, and we have decided to essentially reconfigure the world order that has created more prosperity and peace and rights than any other 80-year period in history. And that is a very dangerous, stupid thing to do. And two, while everyone is focused on the $60 billion going to Ukraine or the $50 billion savings from Doge, that is not where they should be looking. They should be looking at the $900 billion a year annual increase in the deficit. Surrender and deficit are the two things I'm going to focus on. Be unemotional. You don't need to respond right away. Bring experts, bring facts, and focus on the one or two issues that you want to be a domain expert on. Otherwise, you just come across as what they want. If you can be offended, you can be manipulated and you look weak. Don't be offended.
I think they were making great jokes. I mean, I don't know. You had a good joke. I don't
No,
people aren't offended by him as much as like, what a fucking tool. Like
we need to move from what I call being right to effective and figuring out a plan for counterpunch, and then start talking about tactics. I think the Democrats right now, instead of talking about how outraged are, should be saying, oh, by the way, we are shutting down the government. If you've decided that the government is so incompetent, if you don't want to deal with the government, if you don't want to deal with elected representatives, fine, we're going to go upstream of Elon Musk and we are going to shut down the government. It's coming. All right. And let's see what happens to the 10-year bond and the wealth of the 0.1%. We are not going to raise the debt limit. That is the message they should be sending right now.
I'll ignore Steve Bannon channeling his nemesis Elon doing the Nazi salute.
What the fuck is with that?
I don't know.
And are they claiming it's a Roman salute?
There's no such thing. There's no such thing. It's a Nazi salute. Stop it. Stop it. I've deeply studied the Roman salute. There's no such thing as the Nazi salute. Anyway, he's facing legal claims from right-wing influencer Ashley St. Clair over paternity and custody of their alleged child. St. Clair revealed her child's existence on X a few weeks ago. I actually knew about it. I think I told you about it. and said Elon was the father. Elon has yet to publicly acknowledge his paternity, but court documents say he has done so in various written correspondences. Other kid, his daughter Vivian posted on Threads, if I had a nickel for every time that I found out I had a new sibling, half sibling online, I'd have a few nickels, which isn't a lot. But it's weird that it's happened 6 separate times. She's funny. She is really, really funny.
Yeah, like that. If you want to talk about, if you want to talk about what's ailing our country right now, it's that young people under the age of 30 aren't doing as well as their parents were at 30 for the first time in our nation's history. And within that is a subset of people who are doing especially poorly, and it's young men. And the single point of failure for a young man coming off the tracks, becoming more prone to extremist content, becoming more polarized, becoming more likely to harm himself, and some more likely to become a really shitty citizen, it can all be reverse engineered to one thing, and that is the thing that our dear leader, our President Trump or President Musk is engaging in. And the one point of failure for young men is when they lose a male role model. This is more fundamental than technology. It is more fundamental than cutting costs. At some point, character does matter. And the ground central, or the ground zero, in my view, for character for a man, the very basic, the A, B's, and C's, are you going to be involved in your offspring? And we're over here talking about Doge. Anyway, I found that to be the most offensive thing of the week.
It's interesting. I like him illegally raiding and wrecking government more than this. I think this is his modus operandi with all these women. This is what he does. He thinks he should spread his seed. This is what he thinks. This is one of his theories of existence.
The most basic job of a man and a person is to look after your young. That's where it all starts.
Just pay for them, I guess. It's just,
And again, the strongest signal of what is your job? Your job is to produce loving, patriotic offspring, in my view. And the single point of failure, the strongest signal isn't whether these kids are going to have money or not. The strongest signal is involvement of their parents, and if it's a boy, involvement of dad. And already he's being sued by 2 different people.
Girls need their fathers too.
Yeah, but actually,
Oh no.
there's research around this, and it's the following: of all the single-parent households in the U.S., 4 in 5 are headed by women. Girls in those homes have the similar outcomes in terms of college attendance, rates of self-harm, and rates of depression. What you find with boys, though, is that the moment there's no longer a male involved in their lives, the likelihood they'll be incarcerated, addicted to opiates, or engaged in self-harm dramatically increases. What it ends up is that while boys are physically stronger, they are mentally and emotionally much weaker than girls. So it is a bigger deal when the dad is not involved in the boy's life.
What's the issue of the lesbians then? My kids,
Well,
I think, are very well adjusted.
Well, I would argue, there hasn't been as much research, but I think what they find is that the key is having 2 parents, and also, and this will get me shit, typically in gay relationships, one person brings more masculine energy than the other. True?
No,
No?
it's nonsense. It's nonsense. No,
Well, illuminate me.
it's just not true. There's various and different people, just like straight couples. Some of the ladies are more manly, I guess, in some fashion.
Do you think perhaps 2 parents, though, or 2
parents? Absolutely.
uh,
Two
they-
two loving parents, I think, are the critical part, and involvement of men. Certainly, we've spent a lot of time making sure the boys. They did have my brother. My son is fixated on you, as you know. And we think that's important. We think that's really important. But I would say it's 2 loving parents, I think, are the critical, if possible. And that's unfortunately
That's
not
right.
possible for a lot of people. And if not, then there's community stuff like churches or Boy Scouts, or not Boy Scouts, it's gotten so pillory, but any of those kind of things where they can have a feeling of community is critically important.
One of the quickest paths, I think, to a better country would be a recognition that the moment a boy loses access to a male role model, that the community and family need to move in and make sure there's men involved in that boy's life. And what's really unfortunate is that men aren't stepping up to the plate. So, and I say this all the time, if we want better men, we need to be better men. But to produce offspring, in my opinion, and not be involved in their lives is literally a it is such an ugly feature of a person.
It's part of his brand, right? This kids everywhere. I fuck everybody and leave babies in my way. This is his thing. This is his weird fucking thing.
The Venmo debit card, made for staying in the moment and on the move. Earn cash back easily, all with no monthly fee or minimum balance. Your money, your move. Venmo.
Well, you're bringing into the world a child that has a tremendous disadvantage relative to other kids who are brought into loving households with either one or two women who decide to ensure that there are men involved in this kid's life. And it creates a host of issues. As someone who has been asking themselves for a long time, why did my dad not decide to be involved in my life?
Mm-hmm.
And what it ends up is that it is harder and more damaging for boys to deal with this than girls.
Yeah, that's true. Women just marry shitty men. Um, uh, so, the women I know. Anyway, don't be a shitty father, man. Like Elon Musk, obviously. So obviously is. Okay, Scott, let's go on a quick break. When we come back, Trump's military purge and his latest hire. Scott, we're back. Stocks fell sharply last Friday with the Dow seeing its worst week since October and the S&P wiping out almost all the gains since Trump took office. The downturn was fueled in part by a drop in consumer sentiment index, which fell to its lowest level in more than a year. With consumers concerned about higher inflation, there are also worries about Trump's tariffs. As of the recording Monday morning, the S&P and 500 and Nasdaq were still down. There's also these government layoffs, which are going to have. They're the biggest employer in the country. Warren Buffett's in cash. He's gone into cash, and he's not saying why. What do you make of the stock market situation?
Well, just speaking of Warren Buffett, he has a metric which people look to, which has been a fairly reliable indicator of when the markets might be due for a correction. That is, he looks at the market cap relative to the GDP, and usually the average is around 100%. And when post like 2009, it went down to 75%, indicating that stocks were cheap. In and right now it's I think upwards around 190%. It looks like things are really frothy. The hard part is, and the question is what to do. And my sense is, and what I tell people is, it is very hard to time the market. It is very hard to time the markets because just when you think you're convinced the markets are way too expensive, oftentimes they go up another 10 or 30%. And what I would say is it is very difficult to time the markets. Just make sure you're diversified. And if you think, well, maybe I want to put a little bit of cash on the sidelines to take advantage of opportunities, that's one thing. But don't make the mistake I made. When Trump was elected in 2016, I thought, this guy's an idiot. He's going to crash the economy. And I sold everything. And so I incurred a tax hit. I paid an enormous amount of taxes, taking 22.8% of any gains out. And then 6 months later, I realized that I'd acted out of emotion. The markets had screamed up, and I had to buy back in with 78% of my capital at higher prices. So the lesson in terms of what to do, you may want to take some gains off the table and move a little bit more into cash, but be clear, nobody can time the market.
Yeah.
You just want to be diversified and stand for as long as possible.
Yeah, so I just don't look. I just don't look.
Yeah, that's
what
the right strategy.
That's my don't look strategy. And then every now and then, when it seems insane, I sell. It's like sort of gambling, but I'm not much of a gambler in any case. Also, President Trump announced on Sunday night that he's naming podcaster and former Fox News personality Dan Bongino as deputy FBI director. Bongino is also a former Secret Service agent and an NYPD officer. The role of deputy director does not require Senate confirmation. It typically goes to a senior FBI agent. In his post on True Social, Trump noted Bongino was willing and prepared to give up his podcast in order to serve. I've had back and forth with him quite a bit when I wanted to interview him. Um, he kept telling me how much bigger his podcast was than mine. It was very weird. but ultimately he was going to do it, and then of course, wimped out as I expected. Um, would you give up this podcast in order to serve the Trump administration?
I can tell that she has a great sense of humor, but she hasn't told me a joke yet.
Want a career as a pet psychic? We're not the school.
Oh, Kara, I wouldn't give up a goiter to serve in the Trump administration.
Goiter. When have you thought of the word goiter?
That's my favorite word.
That's a good word, goiter.
Yeah.
I don't like it. Wouldn't that suck to have a goiter and not be able to do anything about it? Anyway, sorry. Just thinking I lived in medieval times. Anyway.
Yeah, or a goiter on your anus.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. No, I would not. Would you?
No, with Trump? No. Oh, actually, maybe I might, and then I'll be in charge of the military, and I'll do the bad things that he doesn't want me to do, and have a coup or something like that. This guy isn't qualified. He was a cop, okay, and he was a secret service agent, but this is just a ridiculous circus. These people, and it's
At this point, I just want someone who's competent and can do math.
This guy's
Is he any of those?
no, he's got a lot of he's in a rage a lot. Don't go watch the podcast on video if you want to feel good about our nation's FBI. That's all I got to say. He's a lot. We had a really interesting back and forth, but he's a lot. He's a lot, and in a way that I don't think is particularly good for law enforcement. So who knows? Who knows? Anyway, he also, from hiring to firing, Trump fired the country's senior military officer, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown, late Friday night purge. The move was part of a larger military purge with 6 Pentagon officials fired in total, including the chief of naval operations and top lawyers for the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Obviously, they're getting themselves in place. The official line from Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is that they're putting in place new leadership to focus on deterring, fighting, and winning wars, actually against the American people, probably. But in an appearance on Fox News on Sunday, Hegseth shared a little more about dismissing these lawyers. Let's listen.
Ultimately, we want lawyers who give sound constitutional advice and don't exist to attempt to be roadblocks to anything that happens in their spots.
He's such an idiot. God, he sounds. What is roadblocks? I'm quite concerned about this. They're trying to put people in place. The person they put in place said he loved Trump. Apparently, wore a hat. This seems regular. And just for people who don't know, right now, we're on here, we just voted with Russia not to condemn Russia for the Ukraine invasion for the first time, which seems astonishing that we're doing that. Just happened in the UN, and we are on Russia's side in the Ukraine fight at this point. We're not condemning what they're doing. And this guy's in charge, and he of course didn't know. FYI, he didn't know. He didn't know if who started the war. Hegseth on one of the TV shows. He's so dumb, but also dangerous. Anyway.
Yeah, this is like FDR saying, "Well, what were those ships doing in Pearl Harbor?" And blaming it. This is.
He called it complex when even a Fox person said, "You fair to say that Russia invaded Ukraine?" He said it's complex. He didn't. He's
poured over the border, and they started shelling maternity wards and sending.
Yeah.
I mean, Russia invaded Ukraine. It's weird that we can't even have simple truths anymore. And it's interesting that all these things we took for granted. If you think about the post World War II alliance of the operating system, it's created more prosperity, more rights, more democracy, life expectancy plummets and infant mortality. All of these things can be reverse engineered, I would argue, to this alliance between democracies that we largely had each other's backs, not only on this victory of moral clarity, but also this visionary investment in our former enemies, specifically Japan and Germany. And the result has arguably been more prosperity in the last 80 years and more righteous rights or progress or humanity than the previous 800. And this didn't happen by accident. And so basically to move to, well, I got an idea, let's have 2 spheres of influence between 2 kind of a true autocrat and a wannabe autocrat, and we'll carve up the world. And Europe's sort of sitting there. I mean, I'm trying to think of what could go right. And when I think could go.
Hey guys, I'm still experimenting with the streaming thing. But yeah, this is what I do when I'm not shooting, retouching images. There's a shoot that I did when Drew McIntyre and Sheamus came to a middle school in BK. It was absolutely amazing. I shot it for ESPN, and I just wanted to get a photo that I mean, there are a million sort of setups that we did from this. We did like portraits, individual portraits, but this, I just love sort of the energy of it. I wish that Seamus was in it. I think that Seamus is beside me right now, like, beside, camera left. Um, but yeah, no, this reminds me of sort of, I wanted to say a Renaissance painting, but not exactly. It's one of those things where, there's like a lot going on, and I just want to look at every single face and, um, yeah, lots and lots of stories, lots and lots of energy. So I'm gonna pop this one onto Instagram. I think I'm good with it now. I mean, the black and white treatment, I might fuck with it a little bit more, but yeah, I think we're in a good place. What do you guys think? Um, all right, cool. I'm sure I'll see you guys soon. And have a very, very, very